Today, Iowa Attorney General Brenna Byrd sued the Biden administration's Environmental Protection Agency for failing to fulfill Governor Kim Reynolds' request to allow the sale of year-round E-15 gasoline. On April 28, 2022, a bipartisan coalition of governors led by Governor Kim Reynolds asked the EPA to allow the sale of E-15 gasoline through the summer. Now, despite the Clean Air Act requiring the EPA to comply within 90 days, the EPA has remained silent and refused to act. It has now been more than 376 days since the expiration of that 90-day deadline. Nebraska Attorney General Mike Hilgers also joined the lawsuit on behalf of the state of Nebraska. Well, in response to the lawsuit, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds released the following statement, quote, "American energy independence, including Iowa's renewable energies, should be the goal of any presidential administration, especially when it saves Americans money at the gas tank. I applaud Attorney General Byrd for bringing this lawsuit, holding the federal government accountable," end quote.